Here we go. 40 plus years ago, these were the very first designs of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's see what we're working with. A few days ago, I got my box of SDCC exclusives from NECA. Of course, it's always kind of a gamble to get things shipped through the mail. You never really know what kind of protection it's going to have inside or what the shipping process is going to be like. But I didn't go to SDCC in person, so I'm happy to say these arrived in pretty flawless condition. These are brand new figures by NECA that are inspired by the original sketches of Eastman and Laird when they created the Ninja Turtles way back 40 years ago. This exclusive set came with a special lenticular slipcover, and of all the great packaging NECA has done, this one might be my favorite. Kevin Eastman redid the drawings inspired by those original sketches from 40 years ago, and I have to say they're looking pretty good. He redid them to include some extra weapons, some extra shading, and it just looks nice. So the slipcover is definitely something to hold on to, but let's open it up and see the actual toys inside. This set is officially part of NECA's Mirage line, so it's meant to be more influenced by the comic books, even though these styles of turtles never really made it to the pages. Seems like NECA is going all out with that Mirage line right now, and those were most of their reveals from SDCC this year. You can see a few of those at the bottom of the box here, but trust me, there are plenty more. Between the original Mirage books and then the Archie line as well, I have to admit I have a lot of catching up to do, but I don't want to miss out on knowing any of these characters. One thing to check for if you're an inbox collector, I've seen a few people have issues with the Laird turtle's head. You can see mine has popped off in the package, so if that bothers you and you're buying one secondhand online, I would ask for some really close pictures of that part. If you're planning to display this one in box, I think it looks really good. That spinning chuck front and center really pops. But if you're planning to take them out, you get one more bit of that nostalgic artwork on the back. It looks to be the same as the lenticular cover, just without any of the colored variants, and it gives you a little bit better look at the sketches. When you take the toys out, this is definitely a heavy tray of plastic. I don't know if we've gotten a heavier 2-pack. You can see most of the accessories clearly displayed there on the front, but there's a little bonus tray on the back with a few extra weapons and hands. So again, if you're buying secondhand, just make sure you have it all there. And here's that entire set outside of the package. Let's take a look at accessories. Starting off, we have the bonus head sculpt for the Eastman turtle. I'm kind of surprised they strayed so far from this original sketch design. This one is so tall and not very wide like a modern turtle head. And then if you look at the Laird version, his is like really deep with that giant beak nose on the front. I don't think we've ever seen a bandana in this style ever again either. One thing to be aware of on these alternate heads, my back bandana pieces were actually so stuck that I thought they weren't movable. Turns out they actually were, I just need to work them a little bit. And I would save the best for last, but nah, let's get right into it. This brand new spinning chuck effect is just about as eye-catching as the figures. I really like how they chose to paint the entire thing and not have any clear bits. And there's actually quite a bit of posing and twisting you can do with the chain and the handle itself. Comparing it real quick to that Donnie's spinning bow effect we got a couple months ago, it's definitely a similar concept, but I like this new one much more. Next up we have a bow staff. Nothing too spectacular about it, but it is nicely done. And then for another added throw-in, maybe a nod to the rise of the TMNT Raphael, we have a single tonfa. After that we have a couple of matching swords. The designs on these are really unique, it kind of flares out there at the end. The handles on these look extra long as well, and they're just painted up nicely. The red and gold really complement each other and go well with the silver as well. Next up we have the pair of sais. After unboxing those Playmates figures last week, I guess a lot of people take issue when the sais aren't actually pointy. Well, these are pointy, but they're also bent, so you'll take what you can get, I guess. They're still looking good, and I could probably straighten it out if I really wanted to. Next up we have our second style of nunchucks, these more traditional ones with chains. We get 2 gripping hands for the Eastman turtle. They are gigantic, and then we get 2 gripping hands for the Laird turtle as well. A lot more standard in size, maybe like a toon turtle. And you probably noticed there are a couple more accessories hanging out on the arms of the turtles themselves. Each of them feature these little clip-on chucks. If you check out the original Eastman sketch, you saw that they had these clamped to their wrists. And Eastman's version actually did have chains hanging down from them. To store them on the figures, there's just like a little bit of an opening that you can slide those in. I imagine it might wear out over time, so be careful, but I didn't have any issues with mine. And then on the Laird turtle, we actually have something very similar, but these don't have chains at all. Now, some people will say the original Laird sketch just had a single tube on their wrists, but to me it kinda looks like there's a pair just missing a line on the end to make it look like 2. Who knows for sure. Whether it's 1 or 2, I think it's barely noticeable, and I think they both look good. I'm honestly not sure what weapon it would be if it was only 1, but I'm no expert in that field. And 4 different styles of nunchucks later, we're actually done with the accessories. Let's take a look at the figures. We'll start off with the Laird turtle. I would say of the two, this one is a little bit closer to what we actually see nowadays, even though it's still definitely got its unique traits. One of the first things I noticed were those giant webbed feet down on the bottom and how long that neck is on the top. But I guess when you look at a real turtle, it has to have a long neck so its head can stick out from the shell. So maybe they were just thinking more of a turtle who could walk around instead of it actually being mutated with a human? Who knows? Here's that back bandana piece. It is posable, and you can spin it a full 360 degrees if you want to. The next most noticeable thing about this one is how low the shoulders sit. It definitely matches that original sketch, but it kinda looks funny. He's a little bit goofy with both arms straight up like that, but I'm also kinda here for it at the same time. Again, I think Peter was just taking a lot more inspiration from a literal turtle. You get plenty of movement at the elbow, plenty of movement at the hands. Overall, the figure has a nice paint job. It's got a lot of comic lines, even some different tones of green if you look close at the skin. The legs seem to be moving just fine. You get hip, knee, and a little bit of ankle there at the bottom as well. The tail looks a little bit gigantic and overshaded, but you can pose it and turn it all the way around if you want to as well. Laird's design is a little bit more simple. It doesn't have any pads, just a few straps on the forearm. I don't know if we ever really saw his idea of what the back shell would look like, but this is a nice, unique interpretation. It's got some cool shading, some little spots back there. Same thing on the front of the shell. Nice paint job, good color choices. Definitely looking good. Swapping out the heads is super easy. Here he is with that more, I guess, grizzled, angry head sculpt. And size-wise, I'd say overall the height is pretty similar to a NECA Lawson turtle. And moving on to the reason why this package was so heavy, the Eastman turtle. I've always liked the design of this first turtle, but I've never actually owned any of the previous releases of statues. And I gotta say, once I got this in hand, this has quickly become one of my favorites. There's just something about that derpy little look on his face with that giant shell that just has a lot of charm to it. His bandana's a little bit longer, same posability though. Again, on this one, a lot of great added texture and lines. The shading and paint is great. The shoulders sit at a little bit more of a normal height on this one. Of course, he can reach all the way up as well. It looks a little bit less silly than the Laird one did. But still, I don't know why you'd realistically want a pose like this, but realistically, we don't have mutant turtles either, so go wild. He also has a fair amount of movement there at the elbow. You can bend those giant mitts as well. With them being so big, you might find a little bit more use for this bend backwards. I don't know. You could get creative with it. These hands won't be functional for any sort of like grip or anything like that, but if you want to place something on his hand or give him a big high five or wave, they'd be perfect. Eastman's design also has the elbow pads and the knee pads, the wrist pads that we're used to seeing. We got that extra shaded tail down there, but we do have one less joint on these. He doesn't really have a true knee, or I guess you could call it some sort of like ankle-knee combo, but you still get the flare out at the hips, you still get that posable oversketched tail. All in all, for such a big, chunky figure, I don't think the articulation lacks in any way. He's got that big, tall neck, just like the Laird turtle, looking good. But when you turn this thing around, this shell honestly is the star of the show. It's one part loaf of bread and one part football, and I'm just loving every bit of it. The shading looks super good, I love the lines, it's definitely a nice one. The head pops on and off super easily on this one as well. I don't know if it has to do with that separate neck piece, but something about these two turtles was just super easy to change the heads. I really appreciate that. There are definitely some other NECA figures I have that I'm not really sure that head is ever on. It's also good to note, other than those back bandana pieces, I didn't have any trouble moving any of the joints, so that's definitely a big upgrade as well. Now, comparing the two turtles side by side, you can see that the Eastman version just towers over the Laird. It's taller, wider, thicker. Just about everything is bigger except for that beak. And maybe the tails. I think the tails are the same size. I really don't know how these two designs go together so well, but I mean, it's just like the perfect pair. I could definitely see them making a whole line of comics and TV shows with these as the actual designs. It kind of reminds me of that new breed of turtles from the last Ronin series, how they're all different sizes and species. I don't know, something about it just really works. For comparisons, I'll bring in one of those Lawson turtles. Of course, I gotta choose Mikey. When these were first released in pictures, I just thought the greens were going to be exactly the same, but when you look at it, that Lawson turtle is a lot darker and grittier. They both have a fair amount of shading, but the new ones just pop a lot more. I don't know if either one is good or bad or better or worse, but they don't really match if you were hoping for that. I think you could probably play around with the lighting to make them look close, but right now it's just looking way different to me. Alright, let's deck these things out with some accessories. First up, since this is technically Michelangelo, I guess, we'll start with some chucks. You can see that spinning chuck has a lot of posability. You can go in and out, up and down. Luckily those hands are really pliable so you can get it in there easily when you drop it on the counter. You can actually twist it at its connection as well, but you can't really get it to spin fast. At least I couldn't when I tried. And here it is in umbrella mode. Perfect for all those rainy days in the sewer. Next up we've got Eastman in the same setup. Something about that spinning chuck for him just doesn't look right to me. I definitely preferred it on the Laird, but to each their own. The fingers on this one are a little bit bigger than the Laird, and they're even easier to move out so you can get those accessories in. They are both capable of the one chuck, two hands grip, looking good. And here they are with a sword and sai each. I don't know if Eastman or Laird really ever officially came out and said that their first sketches were Michelangelo. They just both happen to have nunchucks, so I think this definitely works. Here's that Peter figure with the bow staff. He can get both hands actually on the grip, so that's nice to see. It leaves a lot of extra sticking out towards the front end, but maybe that's the official way to use this thing. And while we're here with the stick-based weapons, let's load up Kevin with that tonfa. I don't know if it's a fair match giving the bigger turtle the smaller weapon, but we'll see how he handles himself. Here's a quick switch to the other way around. Kevin has a little bit more trouble getting both hands on that grip, but it does work. I think he would probably look better in a one-handed bow pose, but to each their own. I think that tonfa seems to fit Peter a little bit better as well. And here they are with as many different weapons as I could get in their hands. Of course, you can swap those wrist chucks between the two turtles if you like. Either way, I think they look good. Some people even went all out and bought 4 sets of these so they could have a Leonardo in each style, a Donatello in each style. That, I think, is a lot, but I think it's cool. I definitely wouldn't mind having 4 of these to play around with. Since he was lying around, I decided to see what the Lawson turtle looked like with these weapons, since the colors work so well. I think just comparing them to the weapons that came with these figures, they look a little bit big, but again, you do you. I was curious to see if I could get a two-handed pose on this sword since the handle's so big. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite get it to work without the right arm of Mikey popping out completely. But hey, maybe I could pose things just right and you wouldn't be able to notice. Huh? Does it work? Maybe not. And here he is with a little 3-chuck action going on. You can stuff one of those pairs in his belt if you want to. And for the final comparison, we gotta bring out our other recent sketch turtle, the one from Playmates Toys. This is from the set that was based on the sketch of the first time all 4 turtles were together, so it is quite a bit of a transformation. If I had to choose, I guess I would say it more closely resembles the Laird turtle, but honestly, there's just a whole ton of new elements they decided to add. It still has that clipped-on nunchuck on the wrists, which I had never seen before I really got into these sketches, but it's pretty neat. The more I do these turnarounds, the more I think we just need to normalize seeing the back of these turtles. The shells are always just the best part. I've seen people suggest repainting these Playmates versions to match the NECA, and I think that would look pretty cool as well. Here they are all decked out, the first 3 Mikeys. In the end, I am definitely super impressed with this set. The packaging was amazing, the figures are super cool and fun. Definitely a highlight of the year for me so far. If you made it through this super long video, which honestly was a struggle for me, I'm used to like 30-second videos, I would really appreciate a like, a follow, a share, a comment, whatever you'd like to do. Of course, let me know what you think of these figures. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.